When COVID went down, I thought Anthony Fauci was a sympathetic guy in a tough spot with a lot of critics.
And then I read that book by RFK,
Yeah.
The Real Anthony Fauci. It was a mind-blowing book.
Yeah.
We just need to get more and more people vaccinated.
40 years he's been rampaging over public health.
A lot of people woke up.
Yeah, there's a huge place in my heart for the vaccine injured. I never want that to seem like a judgment to those that submitted to vaccination, because those are the ones who got screwed, because they used propaganda to basically influence them in getting vaccinated. You know, save grandma, for your colleagues, for the nurse you work with, for the patients. I can't say they fell for it. They were being targeted with some of the most sophisticated 360 propaganda 24/7. I thought I'd have doctors to my right and my left. People would be there with me calling out the same, and I found out I was relatively alone. Like, very few of us who really spoke out. Everyone just conformed.
The medicine that saved millions and could have ended the pandemic.
You're at a juncture where, like, there's two ways you can go here. You can go the right way or you can go the other way.
Welcome back to The Price is My Life. Today we sit down with a man who became one of the most controversial and closely watched doctors in America during one of the most chaotic periods in American history. The book is called The War on Ivermectin, the medicine that saved millions and could have ended the pandemic. Dr. Pierre Kory. Dr. Kory is a critical care pulmonary specialist who stepped into the center of a firestorm, testified before the United States Senate twice.
Yep.
In 2020, advocating for the use of ivermectin. Also had some challenges with a nonprofit organization like me. We'll get to that. Faced some issues with human nature and jealousy and envy. Also put his career on the line in defense of what he testified were life-saving treatments. Worked in academia, University of Wisconsin and elsewhere. And to his supporters, he's a doctor who refused to stay silent. To his critics, dangerous dissenter, challenged institutions they believe should not be questioned. Trust the experts. And he joins us here today. I'd like to begin by asking you about, we were just talking before the cameras turned on, the incentive to remain employed.
Is paramount.
The incentive to remain employed is paramount.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
That was, I think, one of the lessons one of the many lessons I took through that whole COVID period is that, because like you introduced me as someone who spoke out, and one of the things that I thought was odd is when I spoke out and I was calling what I'm going to just call calling the BS, the illogical, ill-founded policies that kept being issued that people were following blindly, and I was calling them out. I thought I'd have doctors to my right and my left. People would be there with me calling out the same. And I found out I was relatively alone, like almost completely alone. There's very few of us who really spoke out. And I watched that dynamic continue throughout the pandemic. And I finally realized, like, everyone just conformed. They just conformed. Whatever their employers wanted to do, you want to get a vaccine, they got a vaccine. They just followed all the rules. And the rules were so crazy and illogical. And I came up with the observation. I said, everybody just wants to keep their jobs.
Everyone wants to keep their jobs.
They just the incentive to remain employed seemed to overwhelm all other incentives. No moral responsibility, shy away from any courage, from any adherence to what I think is moral or ethical behavior. It was cowardice.
Has it gotten worse, or has it been that way for decades?
My guess, it's probably always been that way, but the how should I say, the brazenness of how far we departed from societal order and from proper behavior and how much that was accepted, I think it was tested in a way that it exposed itself in a way that I don't think has been tested or exposed before.
A lot of people woke up.
Yeah.
And I know so many people they left the liberal side or the left side. You're one of them.
That's me, for sure.
How did that occur with you?
Well, prior to 2020, I'd been reading the New York Times since I was probably 6 years old, and I literally thought it was the paper of record. If you wanted to know really what's going on in the world, you went first to the New York Times. I believed in all the medical journals, the high-impact journals, New England Journal of Medicine, Journal of the American Medical Association, only the best science and scientists published there. You want to know how bad it was? How much I woke up from? When COVID went down, I thought Anthony Fauci was a sympathetic guy in a tough spot with a lot of critics.
I think we all felt that for a few days or a few weeks.
It didn't take me long to lose that.
He was a Reagan guy, right? He was been around the block.
True.
And then I read that book by RFK.
Yeah.
The Real Anthony Fauci was a mind-blowing book.
Yeah. I mean, I was already a cop to him before that book, but that book was just really outrageous. 40 years he's been rampaging over public health. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly what I've learned in my life is the incentive to remain employed. I've seen it because the show is called The Price is My Life. And some people don't like that it's called that because it's like you're almost like you're tempting them. But it seems like most people's price is like you mentioned, it's just their employment check for the year, whether that's 60,000, 80,000, 100,000, 120,000. Usually I find it's in the realm of 60 to 130,000 is most people's price. And they'll do anything. There's no injustice they won't stoop to. Has that been your experience? Yeah,
and maybe it's not the stooping, but there's nothing that they won't look away from or be silent about, in order to protect their job, which is, a sense of, it is, in my opinion, participation. It's complicity, but
that's not the way that you are. That's not from what I gathered from your book. You're not that way. And I always ask every guest on this program, like, what about you what are the circumstances such that you're not like everybody else?
Yeah. My best guess is I won't say I had a troubled childhood. I was well raised. I had great parents and everything, but I caused a lot of problems in my own life as a young man. Almost failed out of college. And in my 20s, I met someone who really helped me sort of learn how to be a man and live according to spiritual principles. And I took them really seriously. And I followed his suggestions, and I tried to live, an ordered life according to what I thought were principles that we should all follow, like honesty and courage and integrity and brotherhood, many different principles. And I didn't do it perfectly. I'm not a monk, I'm not a saint or anything, but I did the best I could, and I always tried to live like that. And I don't know, maybe I'm from New York, I'm a loudmouth, I got a foul mouth.
Where are you from in New York?
Long Island is where I grew up.
Whereabouts?
Massapequa.
I spent 10 years in Mamaroneck, Westchester County.
Sure.
From New Jersey, so I used to go to Fire Island Seashore as a child.
Yeah.
Great South Bay.
Yep. I grew up sailing and swimming and fishing.
Yeah. Shallow. Yes.
Brown.
But beautiful.
Yeah.
In the summertime.
I had lovely days out there my whole childhood, for sure. But I don't know, James, it's funny. When I was in academics, I was recruited to the University of Wisconsin, and we'd have these multi-stakeholder committee meetings, like everyone from all these different departments and divisions, and they'd talk about policies. And I'd listen, and when I heard something that I just thought was just illogical and not good for patients, and like I would speak up and I'd ask a question of someone, even in literature. I'm like, really? I can't give you a good example, but I remember speaking out enough at these big meetings where most people were quiet. And after the meeting, I'd have people come up to me. They're like, "Oh, Dr. Kory, we really like that you said that." Because like nobody was calling out what I call the elephants in the room. Like just
they were like whispering to you.
But they talk to me afterwards. Like, but I'm the only one. I'm saying these things and then getting
appreciated. Say it publicly.
They don't want to talk too. Like they didn't want to contribute to give their opinion.
Is that how you responded to them, or did you say that to them?
Actually, that's a good question. I think I did once, but I don't know that you can sort of push someone into doing that. It was clear that they weren't able to do it. And then also, then there's another problem, right? Is when you do it, then they're looking for you to do it, right? They're like, oh, Pierre's the guy who, opens his mouth and calls this out. I don't think about that too much, but I do remember that seemed to be a quality. And it's funny, when I got to Wisconsin, which is Midwest, like within days, I learned a new word, which is I was called an East Coaster.
An East Coaster?
Yeah, I didn't know that was like an
mean?
adjective. So an East Coaster in the Midwest is someone who like just is blunt, I don't know if it's rude, but you know what Midwest nice is? Midwest nice is like they smile, everyone's polite, and then the joke goes, but they smile at you while stabbing you in the back. And I saw a little bit of that. Like everyone's like very nice and rule following and conforming on the surface, but they're just like us. It's just a weird, different facade in the Midwest. And whereas I think from East Coast, our culture is like, we wear our stuff on our sleeve.
I've
We
heard
call
that
it like we
before.
see it. Yeah.
I've heard that before because I'm from the area that
Yeah.
you're from.
New Jersey's
Just
similar.
direct.
Yeah.
You know, it's
No
certainly different
artifice.
than Southeast Florida, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's a much different culture here. A lot of people don't work here. It's very strange. There's
Yeah.
something to that. I mean, I was a product of the 1990s growing up, and you wake up, you go to work, you drink your coffee, you hustle, you do your
Yeah.
thing. That's how I was raised.
Same here.
I don't know. The world has changed, I guess, a lot. But East Coasters, you're very direct.
Yeah.
But you know, I found that too with TSA agents. When I go to the airport, they'll be like, "I'm a big fan," and I'll be like, "Why are we whispering? I gotta feed my kids. I gotta,
Yeah.
you know." Yeah, that's. I just wanted to. We'll keep talking about that thematically, but let's go to the testimony that maybe I'm mischaracterizing, but that changed everything, and the moment that you really put you in the national spotlight for the audience that's not familiar. Before we get there, I want people to understand who you were before that. So take me back before COVID. As a doctor, what did your career prepared you to do, and where were you in life before the world changed?
He was basically admitting the fact that the agencies committed treason on camera.
There's a whole science behind eliciting information out of people.
We leverage online dating platforms like Hinge, Bumble, or Tinder.
Swipe repeatedly until you match with someone of public importance that you go meet with undercover.
Individuals who have the potential to help us expose any sort of corruption.
Disney, Meta, the IRS, MSNBC, the NFL, the Department of Defense, we've done it all.
I set up several online dating profiles. And little did I know, I was talking to a senior person within the CIA.
This is what I do for when I work in CIA. We collect information from him.
From Trump?
This guy was talking about how they withheld important intelligence from the president.
This investigation was much bigger than any of us anticipated. All I could think of was, do not get caught.
Are you recording me?
No, of course not. My heart started pounding.
You get to a point where they're that suspicious of you, you've got to get out of there.
When you open that purse, please.
I knew I was busted. He was convinced there was a hidden camera in my
I'm not going
purse.
to do anything.
I'm not okay with this. Stop it.
Yeah. So I was mid-career as a specialist in intensive care unit medicine and as well as a lung specialist. And I was in academics. I was what's known as a clinician educator. I'd won awards for teaching, students, residents, fellows. They love me, and I love teaching at the bedside. My job was like Dr. House, when they walk, I don't want to say I'm like a TV character, but literally I would walk from bed to bed in the ICU with, I called them a group of ducklings or a gaggle of students, residents, fellows, nurses, ancillary specialists. And I would carry on rounds. I'd point out interesting observations. I always shared my thinking, my assessments. And I think everyone just enjoyed interacting with me around the bedside of patients. I interacted with families. And so that's what I did. I teach, and I also researched. I wrote a textbook, award-winning textbook. I kind of was one of the pioneers of a new field in ICU medicine, which is called critical care ultrasonography. We kind of self-taught and taught others how to use ultrasound to make life-saving diagnoses. And so I enjoyed it. I loved writing, publishing, teaching, and really busy. I advanced very quickly. I became an associate professor really quickly. And actually, I was about to become full professor when I resigned from the university very early in COVID, actually before the Ivermectin testimony. I resigned in, I think, April of 2020, May 2020. And I just said, that's it. I saw where it was going. Nothing made sense. I was getting restrictions on what I wanted to do. Like the patients, the hospital adopted the most conservative policy of supportive care only. If you don't know what that means, it's like oxygen, food, fluids, fever reducers, which are a bad idea, but just like simple supportive stuff, and then you let the body heal itself. And because it's a virus, James, and we don't have treatments for viruses, right? That virus was causing lots of secondary problems like hyperinflammation and clotting, and we just intuitively knew you needed to thin the blood, you needed to just tamp down the inflammation, and there was things I wanted to do, and I was trying to kind of nudge my team. I had 17 ICU specialists under me, and then people above me were accusing me of doing things that aren't evidence-based, you know, and you could see what was happening to these patients. They'd land on ventilators, and it was just an inexorable slide to death. Like, I know what trajectories look like when someone's really sick in the ICU and multi-organ failure. I mean, you know, there are some times where no matter what you do, they fail, but, like, at least you're trying something, and I've gotten people better not knowing how to get them better at first, and I did that my whole career. I love doing that. And I just couldn't handle it. And I even got into the middle of I observed a little bit of academic misconduct.
What did you observe?
Well, I was an expert at something called intravenous vitamin C in sepsis. That's how I met my partner, who I founded the FLCCC with, because he was like the world expert. And I mean, it was incredibly life-saving. It's actually, by the way, the story that's in that book, The War on Ivermectin, is an echo of what happened to intravenous vitamin C. And this is before COVID. And I had been doing research on it. I'd finished the study. I was seeing patients turn around like I've never seen them turn around before with high doses of intravenous vitamin C, which doctors for the last 70 years, seems like every decade, if you look at the history, there's been a doctor who's been a major proponent of IV vitamin C, never ended well. That is like vitamin D, like other cheap, safe, accessible therapies. It is a threat to the system.
Vitamin D.
Oh, vitamin D is probably the oldest threat. They've polluted vitamin D science for decades. Every time there's a positive study, they publish a negative one. And I could go into many stories on this, but the theme was most taught to me with the ivermectin saga, which is interesting because the IV vitamin C, I thought that what was happening in medicine around IV vitamin C was just from ignorance. I thought what they were doing was just because they didn't understand IV vitamin C. And what I mean, what they were doing is, after my partner Paul published his study, which showed an unprecedented drop in mortality, he showed it in two groups that he studied. The ones that didn't get IV vitamin C had a 40% mortality, and after he started his protocol, it dropped to 8%. There's actually nothing else in medicine that has that kind of mortality impact outside of defibrillating someone who's in like VFib. That's probably the largest impact in terms of a life-saving potency. Paul's was like number 2, IV vitamin C and severe septic shock. And after he published his study, like the entire specialty, like I actually initially, I didn't know Paul then. I dismissed it. I thought it was Looney Tunes. I was like, what do you mean a vitamin's causing, I didn't understand how potent IV vitamin C is. And to make the story shorter, I was an expert at that point. I'd published, I had been using it in my practice, and I was appointed to the Committee of Therapeutics to determine what the protocol was going to be at the University of Wisconsin. And I made a very evidence-based case about how safe it was and how effective it had been in trials, and then it was like a no-brainer. And actually the committee that I was on agreed, and it went on the protocol until it wasn't.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah. And I saw behind the scenes what was happening, and I said, I'm out. I just didn't want to be in academics anymore.
And you were where? Where?
I was at University of Wisconsin.
University of Wisconsin. And what year was that?
That was in 2020.
Month, year? Was
so those events were probably occurring in February, March 2020, because that probably March, April. I think I resigned late March, early April 2020.
And you find out this new low-cost drug, repurposed drug, ivermectin, actually could help people.
Yep.
Not in theory, but in practice. And you had several patients that had success with it.
Yeah, I mean, fast forward 6 months, I left academics, started a nonprofit. I was doing independent contractor work, working in ICUs around the country. And our nonprofit was getting more and more attention. My partner, Paul Marek, again, he was the first to identify the signal around ivermectin. And the more we looked, all we could find was positive studies after positive studies. And then we started using it. People were turning around like you wouldn't believe. And I mean, it was literally the answer to the pandemic, at least initially, because its efficacy kind of peaked and waned, and like the variants changed, but it was always effective. But initially, it was incredible.
And someone who's completely ignorant to this, so pardon my ignorance, but I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience who know a lot more about this than I do. But just take us through for someone who knows nothing about ivermectin. Yeah. Talk to me like I'm a third grader.
2-minute drill. So ivermectin. So first of all, the discoverer of it is Professor Satoshi Amora. He's 90 years old, Japanese microbiologist. He won the Nobel Prize for its discovery. And the reason why he won the Nobel Prize is because it's known, it has many different efficacies. One is as an antiparasitic, and it literally rid the world of two of the most disfiguring parasitic diseases, which were endemic, like in Africa, South America, Central America. One was mostly Africa. One was elephantiasis, and the other one was onchocerciasis, which is called river blindness. And, there's a famous statue which celebrating ivermectin, which is a statue of a young child leading an elderly villager but with a stick, because there were communities in Africa where by the age of 40, most of the adults were blind from this parasite. And when ivermectin came out, and actually this is when the WHO actually was doing public health, they started a program where they distributed ivermectin to the billions of doses over decades. It's so safe, they would give it away to children, women, old people to prophylax and or treat against these parasitic diseases. And so it's probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, achievements in public health. And for that, they awarded him the Nobel Prize. But the story of ivermectin doesn't end. It has so many mechanisms. It's probably unique in the history of our therapeutics because of its unparalleled safety profile and its broad efficacy. So it has innumerable antiviral properties, anti-tumoral properties. You probably see social media going nuts all the time with ivermectin for cancer.
Like horse something or...
Well, it's a horse dewormer. That too.
Dewormer?
Yeah. So because it works against parasites broadly, it's also a veterinary drug. So horses use it, but it's like calling aspirin, a horse fever reducer, right? I mean, there's a lot of medicines we use in animals as well as humans. But anyways, that's the thing about ivermectin. But most important,
ketamine is the horse tranquilizer.
Yes.
And ivermectin is the horse dewormer.
Yes.
Both different applications in different settings.
And what's interesting is I use low-dose sublingual ketamine in my practice right now.
What do you use it for?
We use it for a diverse array of neurologic diseases. I'm not talking about psychiatric, psychologic, PTSD.
Not PTSD.
No, I'm not how I don't treat PTSD. I'm an expert at dealing with lots of neurological injuries. So my practice is largely based on COVID vaccine injury, and they have idiosyncratic and innumerable nervous system problems and neurological injuries, brain as well as peripheral, sensory, motor. And with ketamine, it's called a psychoplastogen, but the doses that we use it on, it's not psychoactive. We use daily, very low doses sublingually, and it stimulates the growth of nerves, and it actually can help remyelinate nerves, and it reduces inflammation in the brain. And we have just a growing collection of cases of neurological diseases that are being reversed with ketamine, from cognitive problems and dementia to Parkinson's to, and I'm being mentored by two psychiatrists who've been
Ketamine.
Yeah, low dose. So hold on, I want to clear up something, because when people think of ketamine, there's a whole cottage industry of ketamine clinics that use IV. They charge $300-500. You go in once a week for every 6 weeks, and it's kind of like second or third line for depression, anxiety, PTSD, and that's what it's most known for. I believe that my clinic and my mentors are literally pioneering its use in neurologic disease, right? So not mental illness, they treat a lot of mental illness, but we've learned how to deploy it in neurologic disease, and we've had really stunning success. Not in everyone, but enough. You got to understand, neurological diseases are very hard to reverse. And here you have a drug that has a property of literally regrowing nerves. And so we are seeing incredible efficacy with it. And I think, I don't know if the world's working right, but in my best days, I would like to think that in 10 years, it will be established in the treatment of for a number of neurologic disorders.
What is low dosage ketamine?
So first of all, when we do it sublingually, it has poor oral absorption. So 25 milligrams is kind of what we start with. It's only absorbed about 30%.
How does that relative to like a one of those nose things you
Oh,
ingest? Is
well,
that like one or half of
want to
that,
get
or quarter
like
of that, or?
if you want to get high, it's like a 20th or a 10th of that dose. So it's low dose. It's not psychoactive.
I see.
In most people, every once in a while we'll get someone who's sensitive who feels like they felt a little off with the starting dose. But we titrate up slowly. We avoid in most patients psychoactivity.
Reaction.
Yeah, they get a little lightheaded or sometimes dizzy, and so we tell them not to drive for an hour. But it passes quickly. I mean, you learn how to use it. It's not like it's not a complex drug, but certainly you have to use it with caution. But like I said, no one's shown drug-seeking behavior with it. It's not a dependent-forming drug. You can stop it at any time. It really is a wonderful drug. Interesting thing that you brought up. I like the connection between ketamine, the horse tranquilizer,
That's just how my brain
and the
works.
horse, because now I'm thinking like, what am I doing? I'm turning my practice
Well, you go to
horse
Miami
drugs.
Music Festival, and everyone's got one of those. Not everyone. Some people have some of those, flame, nose.
Yep.
I don't
Sprays,
know what to call
like
it.
nose
spray.
inhalers, yeah,
nasal
yeah.
spray.
Nasal spray.
But it's not a nasal spray. It's a ketamine.
Yeah.
And I don't participate in this, but they do like 4 shots up the nose. That's a lot, because you're saying you do 20% of just one of those.
Oh, but we're doing it orally, so you can probably get a little
Orally,
higher.
like a tablet?
Intranasal is higher, especially if they're doing squirts. But you have to understand the intent. Here we're using it medicinally and therapeutically. They're using it to get altered and high, and that's
a lot
totally
of it.
different
Yes.
things. Yeah.
A lot of people get addicted to that too.
It's not a physically addicting drug, but certainly people can tend to really enjoy that experience and seek it out a lot. That's for sure. But we don't see that in our patients. So we've actually, I would say, with my mentors, Dr. Rachel Wilkeson and Dr. Mitchell Leister in Colorado, that's kind of who taught us. And it's interesting, the history of that, because ketamine first got studied for depression by a group of psychiatrists in Yale. And the reason why they did it's a fascinating story, is that patients were going into the operating room. So ketamine was first in use as a general anesthetic. And patients were waking up from operations telling their anesthesiologist, I don't feel depressed anymore. And I guess there was enough of those anecdotes and testimonials that someone said, hey, let's see how this works as a depression drug. And this is in the year 2000. The first study they did was a small study, but really profound results in this group of treatment-resistant depression patients. And so that began, I wouldn't call it a heyday because it's still not first line. You still have to buy it at a compounding pharmacy. You have to find a psychiatrist that's willing to use it. SSRIs always will be first line for all psychiatric diseases. But it certainly has risen in use. It's also can be used at different doses for pain relief. But again, we're using it in a very kind of a unique and I think pioneering way, and it's been exciting. It's probably the most one of the more exciting therapies that I've gotten to use and integrate in my practice in my career.
So let's talk about this viral moment, December 8th, 2020, the Homeland Security. If I have any of this wrong, let me know. Homeland Security Committee hearing on early treatment, December 8th. It's not exactly early. Well, I guess it's early treatment for COVID-19, but well into the pandemic. This is Dr. Kory, Senate testimony on ivermectin, the clip from December 8th. Let's play the clip.
And I want to talk about that we have a solution to this crisis. There is a drug that is proving to be of miraculous impact. And when I say miracle, I do not use that term lightly. And I don't want to be sensationalized when I say that. That is a scientific recommendation based on mountains of data that has emerged in the last 3 months. Mountains of data have emerged from many centers and countries around the world showing the miraculous effectiveness of ivermectin. It basically obliterates transmission of this virus. If you take it, you will not get sick. I'm a lung specialist. I'm an ICU specialist. I've cared for more dying COVID patients than anyone can imagine. They're dying because they can't breathe. By the time they get me in the ICU, they're already dying. They're almost impossible to recover. Early treatment is key. We need to offload the hospitals. We are tired. I can't keep doing this. If you look at my manuscript, and if I have to go back to work next week, any further deaths are going to be needless deaths, and I cannot be traumatized by that. I cannot keep caring for patients when I know that they could have been saved with earlier treatment, and that drug that will treat them and prevent the hospitalization is ivermectin. All I ask is for the NIH to review our data that we've compiled of all of the emerging data. We have almost 30 studies. Everyone is reliably and reproducibly positive, showing the dramatic impacts of ivermectin. Please, I'm just asking that they review our manuscript. It is a serious manuscript by serious, highly experienced physicians and researchers. It must be instituted and implemented. I'm asking the NIH to review our data and come up with recommendations for society. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank Dr. Kory. Now, I will make you this guarantee that before the day is out, we'll have a letter. First of all, we'll enter all your data into our hearing record, and then I'll have a letter to the NIH asking them to review it.
Please,
okay?
and
hopefully I'll have some senators join me in that.
Did Senator Ron Johnson do that?
Yes, he did. Well, let's say that we did get an audience with the NIH. I think it happened through different levers. But we should just mention Ron Johnson's efforts. I mean, he's like literally, we talk about the incentive to remain employed and how few people are whistleblowers and really stood up. I mean, you look at him and the entire federal government, right? All of Congress, executive branch. I mean, he's one of the few who really he saw how wrong this was going. And he held hearings trying to bring the little voices out, the voices that made sense, that were telling truths against like this mountain of lies. And his work, I just think he should be commended.
He's one of the good ones. I've worked with a number of them, but he there's this general politics is tough because they don't really have a lot of power there. Yep. They can write letters. Hey, writing letters is better than doing nothing at all. Yeah. I'll take a letter.
Ron's the first guy. I think he made it with joke. He's like, we're just water boys. I mean, this is a sitting U.S. senator, and he calls himself a water boy, like as just trying to communicate. Like
write letters.
The powers that he has are pretty limited. Yeah,
writing letters. Yeah. So, so sitting there in that moment, it looks very intense. Giving that testimony, what did it feel like for you? Just doing.
Well,
that?
I got to give you some background to why I was so heated. Usually I would give a lecture or teach in a much more measured professional tone. But what happened was prior to the hearing beginning, the minority leader at the time, I can't remember his name, Peters, I think was his name, a senator, basically made a statement, essentially accused the panel, me, a professional, been working on the front lines, doing everything I could to keep patients alive. He like insulted us as like political operatives or opportunists. Like it was one of the most insulting things I'd ever heard to a physician who'd done nothing but commit myself to trying to help. And I was steaming. And I probably spoke maybe 30 to 40 minutes into that hearing. And the reason why I was so heated, because as I took my stupid mask off to speak, I was like, in fear, because I'm a New Yorker, a little bit of a hothead, used to mix it up a little bit when I was a kid, I literally was furious. And so that's I think why it went viral, because I was so angry and I just started hammering away and firing and just with a lot of emotion because I'd been insulted by someone who at the time was purportedly my party. Like I was, I guess, a Democrat at the time. And so that's why I was like really emotional. And I just remember just kind of hammering away. And, I was just listening to that. I wish I'd toned some of my statements down a little bit. They were a little over the top in terms of you will never get sick and whatnot. But I was in a frenzy. And but I'll tell you, so I ended. And literally, my phone starts buzzing in my pocket. My colleagues in my nonprofit are telling me that Fox News wants to interview me.
Really?
Like within, I can't remember how many minutes, but literally, I'm like, from that, like this is on C-SPAN. Like, why would suddenly? I guess people were watching this hearing, and it was a special time, and that really took my nonprofit to really great heights.
Nonprofit again?
Well, it was called the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance. Everyone called it the FLCCC. And that's the name
These
we
are
had.
the images of the people. Paul E. Marique.
Yeah, Paul.
There you are. And how old are you?
I am
Pierre?
55.
55. Pierre. Pierre is a French name.
Yeah, my mother's from France.
Your mother's from France.
Yeah. Grew up in France, yeah.
And we'll get to the nonprofit in a second. So when you sat there in that hearing, did it feel like you were trying to reform the system or step outside of it?
I don't think I had that. You're giving me way too much credit there. I was asked, I got a call one day. Ron Johnson found our website.
And it's an empty room, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's totally empty, right? And so I just felt I was doing maybe a civic duty. But here's the thing. I also took my job and my profession seriously. I knew I was a physician and a teacher. And by the way, the word doctor is teacher. And I felt like as an expert, someone who intensely studied that disease, when I talk about the disease, not the transmission dynamics and all that, but literally how it manifested physically and how to reverse people and treat people, I knew I'd become expert because I literally had just vacuumed up everything I could from the time it hit our shores. And I was being asked to share that knowledge. There's no greater honor and no greater responsibility that I was meeting at that time. So I was taking it very seriously, and I was honored to have the opportunity to share that knowledge, right? So I was that's kind of my narrow focus as to why I went and what I thought I was about. But then, afterwards, things got a lot different. I'd say my life started to go sideways after that. Very civic responsibility was
what happened. What went sideways? Give us the 2-minute version.
Yeah. So within 2 days, the Associated Press wanted to interview me. Like next day, we request for an interview. Whatever. Just shortly did the interview by some dip, journalist. The article comes out, and it's just basically a debunking article that, like, I don't know what I'm talking about, and ivermectin's silly. And then, actually, most of the article was about hydroxychloroquine, which, by the way, that book called The War on Ivermectin, one of my colleagues could have written the same book called The War on Hydroxychloroquine, because it was the same tactic, same strategy, same campaign. It's just a year earlier. They first destroyed hydroxychloroquine, and I was placed in a front row seat to the war on ivermectin. I watched every little bit, but it started with the AP, and then it got worse. I had the article that I had submitted for publication at the time of that hearing got slow walked and sat on by the journal. Finally, I threatened them. I said, I suspect scientific misconduct. I'm going public with this. Like, everyone was going to listen to me. And they retracted my paper. After it had been peer-reviewed, 3 rounds of peer review with leading scientists at NIH, CDC, who at that time were independent and thought my paper credible, and then it got retracted. And then I lost my job 2 days later also because what happened.
Lost your job where?
So at that time I was working at a center in Milwaukee, and unfortunately on the, the Chiron at the bottom, it put that institution's name. I would have thought they would have put my nonprofit because I really was speaking on behalf of the work I had done with my nonprofit.
Weren't you tenured?
No, I'd left academics. So this is a second job I took. Yeah, this was a non-academic job. This was a private hospital. Anyway, so that place lost its mind because literally they saw that testimony and it looks like I was speaking on behalf of that institution. And so they went nuts. And they didn't fire me, actually. They offered me a new contract. And I told them before, they said, we're meeting with you tonight. We're going to be sending you a new contract, which we want you to review. They didn't send it to me before the meeting. And I told them in that meeting, I said, if there's anything in there that restricts my First Amendment right to speak, I'm not signing. And you know when they sent it? During the meeting. They're like, we just sent it to you. Why don't you take a look at it? And I saw like 4 or 5 clauses that all like asked for permission before talking to journalists, this, that, the other thing. And I just said, I'm not signing this.
And then what happened?
I was out of a job. That was job number 2. First one, I resigned. Second one, I guess, I don't know if that's a resignation. I refused to work under those conditions. And then I lost 2 more jobs later on.
And is that just because you were didn't want to lose your sense of integrity? You didn't...
That's part of it. I actually think it was very practical. I think, not that I was like high on my, not that I was like, I'm not interested in fame. You want to be right. No, I knew that this was an opportunity because I knew that, I think by then it was a day or 2 days later, I knew that I had a little bit of a public voice now, and I knew that was important in this time. I don't think I'm overstating my thoughts at that time. I knew it was important enough because I remember telling him that they were sending him a new contract. I knew what that new contract was about. I just knew it instantly, and I said it in the moment. I said, if you send anything with clauses that restrict my ability to speak, it's not happening. I'm going to walk on. And they did it, and I walked on. Said what I was going to do, and I did what I said.
You did what you said you were going to do.
100%.
I've been in situations like that in my life many times. Yeah. Just just to relate to what you're saying, there was a time when I was kicked out of my nonprofit. We'll ask you about that in a moment. I was brought to court. They got an injunction against me from doing what I'm doing now, which is clinically insane.
Yeah.
I'm a journalist, but they tried to argue that what I do is trade secret. To take a microphone and ask people questions is a trade secret. Anyway, it's silly. But I'm in court, and my lawyer says, James, they're going to call you to testify with this injunction hearing. But you could do something to prevent that. You could just quietly, you won't say anything about Pfizer or any inferences regarding Pfizer. Or no, they actually said you have to say that Pfizer wasn't behind your getting booted from Project Veritas. Now, I don't know for a fact that it was, and I don't know for a fact that it wasn't.
Right.
I have circumstantial evidence, but I don't have a smoking gun. So I'm not going to say something that's not true. They always want you to say something that's not so.
Yeah.
Or like, quote, I know that this is the case. Well, I don't know that that's the case. So I said to my lawyer, I will not do that. And he says, well, they're going to call you to testify right now. And I did. There's something very liberating about not doing it under duress.
Yeah.
Like, it was very liberating for me.
It was for me too.
Was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just like intuitively you know it's the right thing to do. And like, you know what the other thing is? I don't know that I'm inventing this like retroactively, but I also think like, we grow up watching movies, you hear stories and heroes. And not that I'm trying to be a hero, but like, you always kind of get attracted to people with integrity and courage and forthrightness and, who
in the movies or in real life?
No, I'm talking about in the movies or stories or not. I was a voracious reader.
You don't really have many heroes these days.
Not anymore, but
in real life.
Yeah, people are portrayed as heroes who aren't. There's that. But
maybe I should ask you who's your hero. One of mine was assassinated in September, Charlie.
Yeah.
So many of them are assassinated. I mean, RFK's father and uncle were both assassinated.
Yep.
So it's a tough time.
But I don't know. Just for me, maybe like in the moment, you kind of know this. I don't know if it's existential, but it's a very meaningful thing. And your behavior, you're responsible to stand up for what you believe and to say the right, like, you're almost at a test or you're at a juncture where like there's two ways you can go here. You can go the right way or you can go the other way, right? And I don't know.
Most people sell out.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what other people do. I just know that there's very few examples that you can see of people who stood up.
Yes.
I was telling you before that's what just angered me when I saw all of the lies for the years of COVID. And I kept saying, please, when is someone going to walk out of the CDC and the NIH and blow the whistle and all of these institutions of society, the journals, like everything that was going on, where all the money was going, the hospitals, the administrators, and there was a few nurses. I'm part of a group of doctors. I have colleagues of mine who've stood up and paid the price. But when you look at this, like I think 1 million doctors in the country or something, and you're talking about like 10 or 20. But we're the ones who got a little bit of a profile. The thing is, in my travels and in my speeches, or when I talk, I've met a lot of doctors who hasn't gotten the attention. They paid the price. Little towns across America lost their jobs. Their medical boards went after them, took away their licenses, and you don't hear their stories, And it's like that, in my mind, is, I did okay. I managed to survive. I think it was because of my nonprofit work, helped me to continue to support my family. And
well, let's talk about that.
Writing.
Your nonprofit.
Yeah.
Because something happened with your nonprofit. What happened?
Well, here's how I think of it. From what I've learned, what happened to my nonprofit is not unique. In fact, it's a story of many nonprofits. The problem with the nonprofit is no one owns it, right? You have your bylaws. And what I learned from my lawyer through that whole saga is that, these COVID emergency nonprofits, I mean, none of us had nonprofit experience. We cobbled them together. We used boilerplate, little bylaws, and we didn't choose our boards carefully. And, we did fantastic work. I mean, Paul and I, what we did, I was traveling the world speaking in many countries. Our protocols went global. We were getting so much appreciation from literally a global audience because we were providing like evidence-based expert guidance on how to treat this disease. And those who listened, I think we were able to help many. But then what happened is, few years in, I don't know, it's just the normal internal dynamics. I think I was viewed as a negative influence after literally building that organization to a huge donor base, being kind of a public face.
What was your budget?
I can't remember. I'll say that
Order of magnitude.
probably in the single millions, 5-7 million total during the
That's quite a
time
bit.
that I was there. Yeah.
So you built it into a $5 million nonprofit,
Something like that, yeah.
and they viewed you how?
It's just internal petty nonsense. So
Like,
I
give me an
think
example.
amongst just my take is this: amongst leadership, they viewed my preference for working with two people that was in our group. They were actually consultants, some of the wisest, smartest, incredible guides. They are today extremely good friends and colleagues. In fact, I started a nonprofit with them after I left. So, but my close work and looking to them for guidance seemed to cause a little, I don't know, what is it, envy, jealousy, or people felt like they weren't appreciated enough. And so I was viewed as fomenting division. This, by the way, these are my words and these are my
They
guesses.
felt that they weren't. Who are the people that felt they weren't appreciated?
Some of the leadership. I'm not interested in naming names
No,
just because I don't
I
care.
just want to know,
Yeah.
just like were the board members, staff?
No, this is, again, by the way, this is my guess because I left so quickly at their first action that I didn't really stay around to
the
learn.
reason why I'm going down this line of questioning is this seems what I want to keep asking you about this, but in our world right now, in our politics, all it is infighting.
Yeah.
Everyone is attacking each other personally.
Yeah.
Every hour of the day, both on the internet and off the internet. And that's what I see
Yeah.
as a journalist. It's quite literally become a litmus test where are you allied with this? Are you allied with Tucker? Are you allied with Kent? Are you allied with this? Or are you allied? I mean, there's no principles that I can see. Yeah. So the reason why I'm asking is I'm getting to a point here because this is very common, to your point, about nonprofits. So you felt that people were they felt that they were underappreciated and that you were.
And I think the board sided with them. And then immediately board members took an action, which I found beyond unconscionable, completely unacceptable. They essentially accused my closest colleagues from within that FLCCC family, accused them of fraud with no evidence. These are the most upright, honest men with integrity that I still work with today.
Accused them of fraud?
Accused them of fraud. Accused them of
What
fraud
was the
and
fraud
fired
they
them.
accused them of?
And fired them.
What was this accusation?
Well, they were doing a lot of our internet and PR work, and they were saying that they were submitting false, audience or media numbers or website hits. They were saying that they were inventing and putting in fraudulent data, which you can't do that with Google Analytics, actually. You cannot commit fraud. It's right there on the dashboard.
What was the real underlying
They
motive?
wanted them out because they wanted me to be able to work with they wanted you know what, James? I don't even want to talk about it because I don't even want to guess. Their action is the most important thing.
May I bring up a word that you can neither confirm nor deny, but if you'd like to address, was there any jealousy involved in this?
I think it's absolutely that. I mean, it's human petty emotions,
Human pettiness.
that they took to just what I would say is unethical, fraudulent. Hard to say criminal. I mean, people lie. I don't know that lying is a crime, but they literally hurled lies at my two colleagues.
It's probably a tort. It's not a criminal act, but it's a tort. But then you have to go through the courts and depose witnesses.
It's certainly defamation. It was certainly defamation.
Yeah, libel or
there's
damaging.
not even a question about that. And here's the thing: as soon as they fired my two colleagues, friends, compatriots, brothers in arms, whatever you want to use, as soon as they did that, that was the last communication I ever had with any leadership.
And what month, year was that?
Good question.
Or what year was it?
Maybe this month, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
May 20. May.
And you were the chairman of this organization?
I was the president and chief medical officer.
Were you on the board?
I was on the board, yeah, but we unfortunately chose too many board members.
How many board members did you have?
I think at the time we might have had 5 or 7.
Someone gave me the advice when I was fired from Veritas: dilute them. Don't be adverse to them. Dilute them. And that was a very pragmatic argument because I'm not going to mention the person who gave me this advice, but it's a very famous person. It's a very, very important individual who gave me this advice. And he said, you do not want to go to war. Now, I wasn't trying to go to war with anybody, but just by virtue of the fact that it's kind of a fight to the death because somebody wins and someone loses. It's a zero-sum game. In my case, I'm sure it was in your case. So
James, hold on. I want to talk about that because I got after that experience, I got the exact opposite advice, and it's what I follow with my next nonprofit, which is called Rebuild Medicine. But the advice was 3 and no more, but there's a caveat. When you choose those 3, you only choose someone that you have the utmost trust in, respect for, and long-time relationship with.
Yep. The third one is, I think, critical. Long-time relationship.
100%.
Because you could have trust and respect for a lot of people, but they have to prove themselves over time.
Yep.
And have you done that?
Have I done that?
With the current,
interestingly,
nonprofit.
In terms of me,
Rebuild Medicine.
I am not like a leader of that nonprofit, so I'm not as much of a leadership role. I would say that those 3 qualities, the board members met those 3 qualities with the kind of the main founders of the new nonprofit, and I've been very happy. I got to meet them. I'm just, salt of the earth, really good guys. I like them.
I completely agree with your advice, and it's the same advice I actually gave Nick Shirley this advice when I said you should start a nonprofit, and I said put a family member on the board if the IRS allows it. I think they allow 1. I'm not sure about that, but you check that, and then put someone that you've known since you were a small child.
Yes.
That can't Judas you.
Yep.
And even Jesus had Judas.
Mm-hmm.
But in the work that you're doing, it almost strikes me that you need to have like disciples because you're going after these powerful, powerful people, which adds, it makes whatever the petty human grievances, it makes them even more paramount, right?
Was there in those cases? I think you have to worry about infiltrators, right?
Did you have any of that?
No, I didn't. I didn't have that. Many people thought that, and I don't see that. I think it's more of what you kind of said: human petty emotions,
envy.
Yeah, and then just odd kind of delusional behavior. I was very shocked at the behavior.
Did anyone try to bribe you in your work, like the big pharma companies?
No, but here's the thing. I'm going to call myself out on this because I was listening to you talk about your experience. Here's the thing there here's what happened. When I saw that they had fired my colleagues on the basis of fraud, as the last time I talked to them, I lawyered up within hours, or I started talking to lawyers within hours. I had a lawyer within a day. And the entire time my lawyer negotiated my exit, multiple times he had to talk me off of a ledge. And what do I mean by that? Like, I wanted to blow it up. I was just going to tell the world what happened, tell the truth. And I really trusted my lawyer. He helped. He was a lawyer, but he was also a friend. He's someone I respected a lot. And so I listened to him carefully, and he just kept telling me, Pierre, negotiate this separation agreement and go live your best life. And I would
separation agreement with whom?
With the nonprofit. And I got 6 months of salary,
which is against your nature, isn't it?
Yeah. But the thing is, in my head, left to my own devices, I would have blown it up. But I really listened to Jeff, and I actually think and there was nothing urgent I had to do. And there was a process that played out over months, and I just kind of listened, and I think over time, me leaving was enough. I was glad to leave at that point. I didn't want to work with those people. And I just listened to my lawyer. And so I'm just kind of I'm calling out myself, James, because maybe that time I didn't speak because I don't know that it would have furthered anything. It might have made me feel good, but I don't know that it was the right thing to do. Why would I need to destroy the organization? I certainly don't have to work with them
there's
anymore.
A difference between destroying the organization. The question I would have for you is, did the public have a right to know the things that happened there?
Yeah, that's actually the point that bothered me.
I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you want to answer it?
I think if I didn't think they were going to continue to do good work, my colleague Paul Marek was still there, although lost all his power. They kicked him off the board as well as me. But I think with Paul still shepherding, still doing the sign, I still think they did important work, and I really had faith in Paul. And so if by my being quiet it allowed support to continue, I didn't think that was such a wrong thing. I think it was just more important that I had to remove myself from working. I couldn't trust those people anymore.
My reaction is your circumstances were such that maybe the public didn't need to know all these petty human things.
Exactly.
Whereas in the case of Project Veritas, if the board member was pinched by the Joe Biden FBI and said you need to hurt O'Keefe, well, that's newsworthy.
Yeah.
Because I always think there's a huge. This is a very fine line, but there is a big difference between wanting to hurt somebody just for power and then wanting people to know about what happened.
Yep.
There's a big difference there.
Yep.
One is tortious. It's trying to do harm. And the other is, well, this is a First Amendment activity that's protected. But you took the 6 months of salary or whatever it was, and you kind of negotiated that.
Yeah, and I have thought about it. Like I told you, my lawyer really had to talk to me a few times.
Is this a longtime lawyer of yours?
No, he was someone I knew. He had done a lot of work in COVID. He has a public profile, and I'd appreciated his work. He was a voice in COVID, a voice of sanity, of truth, but he's also a really, really good lawyer. And he was kind of an advisor and a guide to me. And I tried to listen to him, and I don't know, when my emotions got me over, like when I was acting very emotionally, I wanted to do all those things. But when I would sit, quietly and listen, he kind of won me over every time.
That must have been a tough one for you, but no regrets at this point?
No, because to be honest, here's what I also got, right? So fine, I got 6 months of whatever. But what I also got is I got like mental and emotional freedom. Like I don't really want to fight with it unless the fight is worth it. Like it was not a lot to gain.
Did you take some time off at least? Or did you go right back to
work? At that point I write on Substack, which can take incredible amounts of my time. I would say I was more focused on writing. I was allowed to focus more on my writing and my practice. I kind of spin a lot of plates, and so I just focused on my other interests.
It's like when I left Veritas, I had a chance to make a movie called Line in the Sand.
Okay.
So that was what allowed me to get the freedom to do that. So FLCCC was the previous nonprofit. The current nonprofit is Rebuild Medicine. What's the mission of Rebuild Medicine?
We are really interested in supporting and influencing not only research but policy around repurposed drugs. We have thousands of drugs that have been long-time safety records, efficacy records. They have numerous mechanisms, and they can be deployed against other diseases. And James, you're going to like this. The Achilles heel of the entire pharmaceutical industry is repurposed drugs.
What do you mean by that?
Which means I should probably call it off-patent drugs, right? Because the entire pharmaceutical industry makes these obscene profits over these massively expensive drugs because they have patent protection. Once they lose patent protection, those go into the generics, and they can be made for pennies. Like Ivermectin in India, I think costs 6 cents a tablet.
What is it?
6 cents to make an Ivermectin tablet. And then you can buy them in South America for like $1 a pill.
Wow.
Or even less. You could probably buy a 5-day course for a couple of bucks.
So what's the solution to? Is that a problem? And what's the solution to it?
There are solutions. Probably the most sensible one is to probably the only one that kind of made sense in terms of modern economics is that if a pharmaceutical company wanted to study a repurposed drug for a new indication, you would afford them some amount of profit margin to do it, right? Because there's no incentive to study ivermectin's efficacy against cancer. Let's say you proved it's highly effective against cancer, and you spent the money to do the research to discover and show that. How are you going to get a return on your investment? Now, I'm talking about business that I don't know anything of, but that has always seen the problem. The way the pharmaceutical industry behaves is they will neuter any time there's a threat to a current market. And so look at the markets for COVID. You had remdesivir to the billions of dollars, Paxlovid and molnupiravir, right? I mean, massive global markets for these pricey new patented pharmaceuticals. This market opens up overnight with the whole globe getting sick from COVID, right? I mean, they made it literally national policy to infuse remdesivir into every hospitalized American's arm for years, and it probably still is the policy, although I'm out of that game or that system. And what did ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine threaten? It threatened the vaccines. molnupiravir, remdesivir, and Paxlovid. And so when I say that the book, The War on Hydroxychloroquine, would be the identical book to mine, well, not as interesting, I should say, but those
and the
were
book
wars.
Again, if you're just tuning in, I like to read these books. The War on Ivermectin, the medicine that saved millions who could have ended the pandemic, by Dr. Pierre Kory. So these generic drugs where they make like 5,000% profit or whatever the case may be, is it all about money for these pharma companies?
I think it's predominantly about money.
Mostly about money.
I mean,
because we actually interviewed some of these people. I know you've seen some of our videos, but I want to pull one up. This is a year ago for Johnson & Johnson from my native New Jersey.
Yeah.
Let's pull this up. This is Johnson & Johnson's lead regulatory scientist talking about their product, saying that it's not safe and effective.
The lack of research that was done on those products?
Joe Biden says that it's safe and effective, but like he didn't know.
There's no proof. I mean, none of that stuff was safe and effective. People wanted it. Who gave it to them?
Say pause.
It's like
I love he's
eating
scooping an ice cream. People want it. Give what people they want. I have so many questions. Well, first of all, what's your reaction to the lead regulatory scientist at Johnson & Johnson's comments?
You know, I hadn't seen that before. I've seen a lot of your work before. That, the way he answered that, this kind of aloof callousness, like I think people are able to, they have a worldview where they do not have the ability to empathize or have the sense of the experience or lives of others. They're abstract to them. So people become abstract. And as soon as people become like a number or some abstract presence, it's not like your dog, your mom, your wife, you know, they seem to lose a sense of care or empathy. You could see like, oh, we just gave it to him. Like who is them? It's not there's no person attached to the word them. Them is just a word.
You're right. I've never heard it put that way. There's no regard for humanity or morals or ethics. And people always ask me, well, why are these men don't recognize you with your silly wigs? Why don't they understand what's going on? And the doctor here just answered your question. There's no empathy. They're in a complete abstract other world. Play the rest of this footage.
All right, you know what? Cancer patient's going to die anyway. I'm sure somebody's going to get sued for that stuff eventually.
Anyway, then I confront him, and he denies his identity. I'm not Josh. Okay, we have to play that part. So, yeah, like someone's going to get sued.
James, that
sued.
statement right there.
Yeah.
Cancer patient's going to die. So cancer patient is just two words. There's no person there. It's just an abstract idea of a cancer patient who's going to die anyway. That's what they do. They die. It's just like, it's to be honest, I don't know if I'm going too far, but here's another interesting thing that I kind of learned is that I remember I read something somewhere. Some guy made the argument. He said in long-term federal prisons, it's considered that 20% of the inmates are psychopaths, right? So they have no empathy, care, or regard for others. And they said, but you know what the rate is on the C-suites of corporations, meaning the executives of corporations? They said it's about the same. And whereas we always identify the word psychopathy with someone who's hyper-violent or, rapes and pillages, a lot of the psychopaths, they will do anything for power and money. So like you asked me before, like what is the incentive? Is it just about money? And I said, yeah, I think it is just about money. But I think it's also just success and achievement. And when you don't care over you trample to get to where you are, you're able to commit these crimes that are protected. You know how many people have been saying for you, how come the executives aren't going to jail? So you're letting these, and I hope I'm not speaking too strongly, but it's a theory I have that I think there are people in power. Like, look at that guy. If you put him as the CEO of a major corporation,
and many of them are.
See how he doesn't care about anyone? He's like, we just gave it to him anyway. And you have someone with that much power.
It's a really astute observation. I've never heard it put that way because I think you're answering a lot of questions the audience has about, because I think people are kind of shocked at this. Do we have another clip of the Pfizer? This is Jordan Walker. I think you've seen this one, but I've played this. We're going to play it again because Dr. What's his name? The NIH. I'm really bad with names. Malone.
Malone, yeah, Robert
Robert Malone.
He's a good friend, yeah.
Robert Malone was interviewed about this piece, and he says, absolutely, it was like a quote from Apocalypse Now. No human decency whatsoever, completely off the reservation. And it was shocking to us as we watched this guy, Joshua Rice is his name, Johnson & Johnson, and this is the head of mRNA scientific planning at Pfizer.
Pfizer ultimately is thinking about mutating COVID?
Well, that is not what we say to the public. No, don't tell anyone this. You probably shouldn't tell anyone. You probably shouldn't tell anyone. Okay? We're exploring, like, now, you know how the virus keeps mutating?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we're exploring is, like, why don't we just mutate it ourselves so we can create undeveloped develop new vaccines, right? So we have to do that. If we're going to do that, though, there's a risk of, like, as you could imagine, no one wants to be having a pharma company mutating viruses. It would be, like, very controlled to make sure that this virus that you mutate doesn't create something that, like, it goes everywhere.
Something crazy.
Is the way that the virus started in Wuhan. To be honest, like, it makes no sense if this virus popped out of nowhere. And, like,
yeah, I know.
Unbelievable. Your reaction?
I think it's the same as the last one. I mean, you're discovering these things and you're putting this out to the public. You're showing what these people are like in these positions of power. He's exhibiting the same characteristics that the first person you interviewed. I mean, the consequences of his actions, he's not able to contemplate what he's just doing what he's doing. It's what everyone else does, and it's what we do. We don't tell the public, but this is just how it works. And, like, there's no self-reflection. There's no thought. It's like one of my favorite novels that I read like 5 times in my 20s. There was a bar in the novel called The Unexamined Life. And, like, there's no self-reflection.
Is
or
that
maybe there's no ability.
more common? I've seen some of the most dystopian and evil, almost sociopathic, dark triad aspects in the medical institutions. Is that more prevalent in there, or is it in all institutions equally?
I'm going to say when you say medical institution, I will say
pharmaceutical institutions.
Pharmaceutical, yes. Because I'm thinking as a doctor, I'm looking at my own life experience. I will say that many doctors, I really think we went because we were like myself, a little bit sappy. We wanted to help people. We literally did. Many of us really, when they ask you why you want to become a doctor, I used to say when I was in high school, I was like, well, I like science and I like people. And I want to help them. That was literally my thinking. Yeah. But it was honest. It was sincere.
My dad's an engineer, and he would always say as a child, he said, I just wish I was a doctor so I could help people.
Yeah.
You want to lift people up. Even the most rewarding work I do in journalism, citizen journalism, is lifting other citizen journalists up. That's even more rewarding than doing it myself.
Yeah.
But, to your point.
Yeah. And I found out that after I became a doctor, I discovered in my career that I was like, I don't know how I did this, but I ended up in the best job for me because I took a career path which led me to teaching. So it was not only I got to help patients, but I got to teach other doctors, and I got to do research and research new therapies and bring them to patients, and it got me in a lot of trouble, but I'm still at it.
Trouble, the loss of certification came with a price. 2024, your ABIM. I hate acronyms.
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
American Board of Internal Medicine.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, James, because I think most people don't know how medicine works, but it wasn't my license to practice medicine. But what it is, it's a specialty certification. So if you pass your boards, you can puff out your chest. You can say, I'm triple board certified.
They take your credentials away. Dr. Kory, MD, I'm reading from the website, is no longer certified in critical care, pulmonary disease, and internal. No longer certified, according to the website. Is no longer certified. That's what they do to people.
Here's the thing about that. In the old days, a board certification was just a badge of honor. Just a little thing that you could just say, I'm board certified because you passed a little higher grade test. But they've weaponized that in the last 10, 20 years. Now, most academic medical centers, you cannot join faculty unless you have your boards. Many insurance companies will not invite a doctor onto their panel if they don't have their board. So that action effectively excommunicated me from the system of medicine as it exists today. Now, let's be clear. Didn't bother me one whit in terms of materially, because I'd already left that system. I have a private fee-based telehealth practice, and that's where me and my colleagues see patients across the country. And I'm not saying this like as grandiosity, but we're literally meeting the greatest unmet need in the country, which is the treatment of the chronically post-COVID vaccine patient. I mean, we have patients that are still disabled today. And it's a wicked disease. It's really complex, and we've had to really try a bunch of different therapies to try to help them. And that's what I do now, but I can't do it under insurance, can't do it with a boss. I would never let anyone tell me how to practice medicine again.
And it seems to be that most doctors, good doctors, are going the way of private, because the insurance industry is kind of a pyramid scheme, in my estimation.
Those who've woken up and I think those with integrity, intelligence, wisdom, and mostly integrity and morality. The idea of me working for an institution right now, it's just that thought, as soon as it sparks, it dies. Like, there's no way I would submit myself to an employer that's in this, like a hospital, a university.
It seems like the future is individuals, not institutions.
You think?
The institutions have become systemically corrupt.
Yeah. Yes.
Systemically corrupt. I mean, have individuals become systemically corrupt? It sounds like in groups petty human emotions and envy and power dynamics. Well, what cost you more? Let me rephrase the question. What's the greatest price you've had to pay?
James, you're asking me that now in 2026, and here's why I'm kind of deflecting from that question. Because where I sit now and the life I'm leading now is beyond my wildest dreams. I am so happy. And so when you ask me what is the greatest price, I love the freedom I have. I love being able to focus on what I'm doing. I'm having success at what I'm doing. My practice is doing okay. My writing seems to be enjoyed by a lot of people. I get to write and research.
You've had a reward.
Anything. Yeah. It's like I've been freed and given a new life of inspiration and autonomy, and it's beautiful.
Wow.
And so it's hard for me to say the price I paid, but to be as fair as I can to that question, during it all, every time I lost a job, and I lost 4 jobs, there was periods of anxiety around, I have kids in college, going to college during that period, and
during the time of this.
Yeah, during the time, and I didn't have money saved beyond 2 years of their college, so worried about that, worried about the mortgage, but I got to tell you though, each time I got knocked down, I bounced back up. I'm resourceful. I worked my butt off, and I think I had people who supported me, and I don't know, I survived. And that's why I talk about those people you'd never heard their names, the doctors in the little towns in Washington State who can't practice medicine again. And there's people who really paid costs, or the people who walked off from jobs because they refused to submit to the mandate to get vaccinated and literally blew up their salaries. And let's talk about that, James, because, we're talking about the my price is my life. Let's talk about that large population in this country who literally were willing to forego their paycheck to avoid taking that shot. If that is an example of integrity and courage.
There's a lot of examples of that.
Yes. But here's the thing. I don't want the vaccine, because there's a huge place in my heart for the vaccine injured. I never want that to seem like a judgment to those that submitted to vaccination, because the thing is, those are the ones who got screwed because they used propaganda to basically influence them in getting vaccinated. Save grandma and do the right thing for your colleagues, for the nurse you work with, for the patients. Oh my God, you're going to endanger the patients if you don't get vaccinated. So, nobody did anything bad by getting vaccinated. In fact, it was a big lie, and I can't say they fell for it. They were being targeted with some of the most sophisticated 360 propaganda 24/7.
I think you're really right to focus on the heroes of this country, and there's probably, oh God, I don't know, you would know better than me, but millions who refused it. Let's even call it 1 million people who lost their job, or hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And I think you're right to focus on the goodness in humanity, because we tend to focus on the evil.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. The unknown middle-class worker who just refused to do it.
Yeah.
You know, speaking personally, I had to go to an event in Manhattan. I was the CEO of Project Veritas, and we get donations, and there was a big donor that said, you need to get vaccinated to go to this event. And I said, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I really want to get the vaccine. He said, oh, come on, James. He wasn't pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. He just wanted me to go to the event. He's like, I think you should just do it. It's not a big deal. Get the vaccine, go to the event. And I was really torn up about it. And I said, yeah, honestly, I'm sorry, sir. I will not. I can't come. I'm sorry. So eventually he stopped pressuring me. And then 6 to 9 months later, they had another event at the same place, and they didn't require the vaccine. So it was self-reinforcing. I made the right decision.
Yep.
But at the time, I was like, I had a fiduciary responsibility to the organization. Is this guy not going to write a big check?
Yeah.
And that was for me all the reassurance I needed when time went on. But not everyone, you have a story that's similar. Some people feel damaged, or they deserve restitution. They feel,
here's why I want to call myself out again. There's only one reason I'm not vaccinated. Had I been in a clinical job employed when they got rolled out, and who's the first people they jabbed was anyone working in clinical medicine, right? Anyone on the front lines. That was January of 2021. I'd lost my second job, so I was unemployed from the system. Had I been working and they said, hey, employee health, you have an appointment today, 1 o'clock to get you, I literally, at that time in January 2021, I hadn't woken up yet. I would have walked down and gotten the shot. Never had a question about vaccines. Thought they were the greatest thing since sliced bread. Remember, they've solved polio and smallpox, which are complete myths and lies, because since that time, Ivermectin woke me up, and now I'm probably too awake. I mean, I know too much about history, too much about these lies that have been propagated for decades, and there's no bigger one than the vaccines. I mean, the vaccines are built on a myth that has been propagated for decades. I mean, when I've gone deep on the polio epidemic, the smallpox epidemic. Vaccines didn't cure those pandemics. Those are very complicated stories that have been simplified to a very to a story that benefits a certain class of people.
And the more effective you are at standing up to those powerful people, the more dangerous it becomes.
Yeah.
The more effective you are, the more dangerous it becomes. Would you do anything differently, knowing now what you do?
If you heard my last answer, no way. James, I just this weird anecdote memory came in that I wanted to share with you on that topic we just talked about. But 2 years ago, I moved to Florida, and I was looking for a house, and we called this realtor, and they were showing us this rental, and went through the whole visit. They showed us. It was just a modest thing. It was like a 2-bedroom. I just needed it for like a couple of months. And we went out to the driveway, and the guy started crying. And it's going to make me cry, but he started crying because he said, are you Dr. Kory? And he told me that, he thanked me for my work. And the reason why he was crying is because he said that, the teaching and the education, the stuff that I was putting out, he thinks saved his life. He also told me that he was a physical therapist who left his job over the vaccine. That's why he was doing real estate work, because he had left his profession. He was apparently a really talented physical therapist. He was one of the best there, and he had been in a position of leadership. And when he refused that vaccine, he was gone. And it was very emotional for him to meet me. It was like this random meeting, and it was very emotional to me, and I just remember that. And, you just think about those people.
Wow. That's what keeps you going. Well, the book is called The War on Ivermectin, the medicine that saved millions and could have ended the pandemic. Dr. Pierre Kory. And you've written 2 books. You're working on another book?
Well, I just published The War on Chlorine Dioxide.
War on Chlorine Dioxide.
Can I say 2 things about that? So if there was a war on ivermectin that was global, because it was such a threat, right, because it's an off-patent drug, and it would have decimated the markets for all their COVID therapies, I spent a year researching and writing the book called War on Chlorine Dioxide, and that's where you. By the way, it's never be on Amazon. Never buy.
It's
a
not
publisher.
on Amazon.
Never.
Is it on Amazon?
I would never even try. They ripped every chlorine dioxide publication in 2020 as the COVID was breaking out. There hasn't been anything on chlorine dioxide since then in terms of books or pamphlets or guides.
Well, give us the 60 seconds on the war.
Well,
on
the 60
dioxide.
second is, I believe that is the most suppressed therapeutic in modern times and has been for decades, and that suppression is global.
Why?
It is the broadest therapy in terms of categories of diseases. It's extremely inexpensive, widely available. I wouldn't say it's difficult to use, but you have to learn how to use it. But it is the broadest anti-infective known to mankind, and it's safe to take by ingestion. However, if you do, or if you tell anyone to do it, you will get media around the country putting out little episodes saying that this doctor is treating people with bleach. They characterize it with the word bleach each and every time, each and every country. Anytime you talk about chlorine dioxide, they call it bleach. It's not a chlorine agent. No free chlorine is elaborated from it. But the interesting thing is, one of the most powerful little anecdotes in that book is I got to interview a scientist who worked with intelligence throughout the 70s and 80s. In fact, this scientist was responsible for helping Soviet scientists defect, and he helped a guy named Vladimir Pasechnik defect, who was the head of the Russian bioweapons program at the time in the early 90s. And they had been working with chlorine dioxide back then. And he had told this source of mine that it was the ultimate antidote to all bioweapons. That's back in like the early 90s.
If what you're saying is true, you're challenging the orthodoxy of everything.
Isn't this the right place to do that?
This is certainly the right place to do that. It's just my mind goes to places, dark places, that your life is in danger if you effectively reveal. The more effective you are at revealing this, the more dangerous it. Do you ever reckon? My last question. Do you ever reckon with that? The danger associated with what you do? I
used to. I have a very stupid, funny story. Is that there was a time during the war on ivermectin where I very astutely would go to sleep with a bat next to me. That's how prepared I was. I wasn't even thinking. I don't think I really credibly feared for my life. I think and I don't know that this is true, but once you write a book, it's published, it's out there. If they do anything to me, it's almost, what is it, the Barbara Streisand thing? I can't remember what it is, but like,
Streisand
or there's
effect,
no
yeah.
bad publicity. Like, that's not in their interest. If I die, I used to say for a while, I'm sure you've said it, I'm not suicidal, I feel happy and all that good stuff.
That.
I've said that. And I used to think it was funny at the time, and then I didn't think it was funny, and that just, I think my gut belief is that I don't know that it's in their interess, and I don't.
Well, it's
know
almost
that
like they can dismiss you and take away your credentials.
They do all that, yeah.
Books are, it's a very well written book, and books are very important. But we live in the age of video, so if you were like filming these people admitting, like, we know that this product works, but we're not going. I think that you would be more of a threat than you even are right now, because they can kind of dismiss you.
100%.
They can put you on the peripheral.
That's exactly right.
But the moment you actually start encroaching, like a John F. Kennedy did when he wants to blow the CIA up, or a Charlie Kirk did, when you start really encroaching upon them, that's when your life is in danger.
So so what I learned is, I think the best example of this, or I should say the worst, is I love Bobby Kennedy, but if you look at what happened to him, I mean, he's one of the greatest American statements in his career. The nonprofit, he cleaned up the Hudson. He was all about clean waterways, and a spokesman, and a terrific lawyer, fighting for the little guy, protecting against big corporations, right? And the first time he starts to talk about the fact that it's not a good idea to have mercury in the vaccines, it's like, when he was anti-fish, when he was anti-mercury, nobody called him anti-fish, right? As soon as he was like anti-mercury in vaccines, he became anti-vax. And they have lampooned and pilloried him and denigrated him in mainstream media for 18, 20 years now. And what that is a censoring tactic. So as long as they can ridicule you, make you look fringe, quack, radical, controversial, like all the descriptors they always put in front of my name, it basically removes your voice, because only certain people listen, because, that guy's a quack, don't listen to him. And so the reason, you're right, the reason why I'm probably safe is because they allow you your little corner of society,
as long as you have that.
Your little audience there, but as long as your audience doesn't get too big, they'll leave you alone. And they know they can contain you.
That's right.
Right?
That's exactly right. I was going to say, but thank you for joining us here today, Doctor. We run out of time. We'll be in touch. It was great meeting you.
Pleasure.
Audience, tune in every week for another episode of My Price is My Life, where we talk about courageous people who do the right thing sometimes pay a price for it, sometimes get a reward for it. See you next week. What is your price? Because if your price is not your life, then you are for sale.